शिरोमणि केवल आनंद कंदा सबावतार सारा शिरोमणि केवल आनंद कंदा केवल आनंद कंदा केवल आनंद कंदा केवल आनंद कंदा केवल आनंद कंदा। भजो भजो भाई चैतन्य निताय सुदृढ़ विश्वास कोरी भजो भजो भाई चैतन्य निताय सुदृढ़ विश्वास कोरी विषय छाड़िया सेरा से मजिया मुखे बोलो हरि हरि विषय छाड़िया सेरा से मजिया मुखे बोलो हरि हरि मुखे बोलो हरि हरि मुखे बोलो हरि हरि मुखे बोलो हरि हरि मुखे बोलो हरि हरि। देखो रे भाई त्रिभुवन नाय एमन दयाल दाता देखो रे भाई त्रिभुवन नाय एमन दयाल दाता पशु पाखी जोरे पाषाण विदार शुनि जार गुण गाथा पशु पाखी झूरे पाषाण विदार शुनि जार गुण गाथा शुनि जार गुण गाथा शुनि जार गुण गाथा शुनि जार गुण गाथा शुनि जार गुण गाथा। संसारे मजिया रोहिली पोरिया से पदे नहीं लोआ संसारे मजिया रोहिली पोरिया से पदे नहीं लोआ आपन करम भुंजाए शमन होए लोचन दास आपन करम भुंजाए शमन होए लोचन दास 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 परम करुणा बहु दूरी जान निताय गौरचंद्र परम करुणा बहु दूरी जान निताय गौरचंद्र निताय गौरचंद्र निताय गौरचंद्र।
Thank you very much, Yeshwar Krishna Prabhu, for playing a wonderful song by our Acharya, Lochandas Thakur. Sorry, I was at the deity worship, so please excuse me for naming all the participants today. So we will continue reading the prayers of the Vedas from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, chapter 87. Text was 25. I think we read the translation and also the one paragraph, but just to bring up to the speed, we will read the purport again. The true position of the Supreme Personality is a sublime mystery, as is also the dependent position of the Jiva soul. Most thinkers are mistaken in one way or another about these truths. Since there are countless varieties of false designations that can cover the soul and create illusion, foolish conditioned souls submit to obvious delusions, but the illusory power of Maya can easily subvert the intelligence of even the most sophisticated philosophers and mystics. Thus, there are always divergent schools of thought propounding conflicting theories concerning basic principle of truth. In traditional Indian philosophy, the followers of Vaisesika, Nyaya, Sankhya, Yoga, and Mimamsa philosophies all have their own erroneous ideas, which the personified Vedas point out in this prayer. The Vaisesikas say that the visible universe is created from an original stock of atoms. As Kannada Rishi's Vaisesika Sutra 7.120 state, that which is of the smallest size, the atom, is eternal. Kannada and his followers also, somebody is chanting. Kannada and his followers also postulate eternality for other non-atomic entities, including the souls who become embodied, and even a supreme soul. But in Vaisesika cosmology, the souls and the supersoul play only token roles in the atomic productions of the universe. Srila Krishna Dvaipayana Vedavyas criticizes this position in his Vedanta Sutras 2 to 12 as follows. According to this sutra, one cannot claim that at the time of creation, atoms first combine together because they are impelled by some karmic impulse adhering in the atoms themselves. Since atoms by themselves in the primordial state before combining into complex objects have no ethical responsibility that might lead them to acquire pious and sinful reactions. Nor can the initial combination of atoms can be explained as a result of the residual karma of the living entities who lie dormant prior to creation. Since these reactions are each jiva's own and cannot be transferred from them even to other jivas, what to speak of inert atoms. Alternately, the phrase janim asataha can be taken to allude to the yoga philosophy of Patanjali Rishi. In as much as his Yoga Sutras teach one how to achieve the transcendental status of Brahmanhood by a mechanical process of exercise and meditation. Patanjali's yoga method is here called asat because it ignored the essential aspect of devotion, surrender to the will of the Supreme Person, as Lord Krishna stated in the Bhagavad Gita 17:28. Quote, anything done as sacrifice, charity, or penance without faith in the Supreme, or Shanaprata, is impermanent. It is called asat and is useless both in this life and in the next. The Yoga Sutras acknowledge the personality of Godhead in an oblique way, but only as a helper whom the advancing yogi can utilize. Iswara Pranidhanadva, devotional meditation on God, is yet another means of achieving concentration. Yoga Sutra 123. In contrast, Badrayana Vedivya's philosophy of Vedanta emphasizes devotional service not only as the primary means to liberation, but also as identical with liberation itself. Worship of the Lord continues up to the point of liberation, and indeed goes on in the liberated state also, as the Vedas reveal, Vedanta Sutra 4.1.12. Gautama Rishi in his Nyaya Sutras proposes that one can attain liberation by negating both illusion and unhappiness. By successively dispelling false conceptions, bad character, entering action, rebirth, and misery, the disappearance of one of these allowing the disappearance of the next, one can achieve final liberation. Nyaya Sutra 112. But since Nyaya philosophers believes that awareness is not an essential quality of the soul, they teach that a liberated soul has no consciousness. The Nyaya idea of liberation thus puts the soul in the condition of a dead stone. This attempt by the Nyaya philosophers to kill the soul's innate consciousness is here called Sato Mrutim by the personified Vedas. But the Vedanta Sutra 2.3.17 unequivocally states, Gnota eva, the Jiva soul is always a knower. Although the soul is in truth both conscious and active, the proponents of Sankhya philosophy wrongly separate these two functions of the living force, ascribing consciousness to the soul and activity to material nature, Prakriti. According to the Sankhya Karika 1920, quote, thus, since the apparent differences between Purushas are only superficial, the Purusha's true status is proven to be that of a witness, characterized by his separateness, his passive indifference, his status of being an observer, and his inactivity. Thus, by contact with the soul, the unconscious subtle body seems to be conscious, while the soul appears to be the doer, although he is aloof from the activities of the nature's modes. Srila Vyasadeva refutes this idea in the section of Vedanta Sutra 2.3, 31 through 39, that begins, the Jiva soul must be a performer of actions, because the injunctions of scripture must have some purpose. Acharya Baldev Vidyabhushan in his Govinda Bhasya explains, the Jiva, not the modes of nature, is the doer. Why? Because the injunctions of the scripture must have some purpose. For example, such scriptural injunctions as Swarga Kamo Yajeta, one who desires to attain to heaven should perform ritual sacrifice. And Atmanam Eva Lokam Upasita, Bruhad Aranyaka Upanishad 1.4.15. One should worship with the aim of attaining the spiritual kingdom, are meaningful only if a conscious doer exists. If the modes of nature were the doer, these statements would serve no purpose. After all, scriptural injunction engage the living entity in performing prescribed actions by convincing him that he can act to bring about certain enjoyable results. Such a mentality cannot be aroused in the inner modes of nature. Jaimini Rishi, in his Purva Mimamsa Sutras, presents material work and its result as the whole of reality. He and later proponents of Karma Mimamsa philosophy teach that material existence is endless, that there is no liberation. For them, the cycle of karma is perpetual, and the best one can aim for is higher birth among the demigods. Therefore, they say the whole purpose of the Vedas is to engage human being in rituals for creating good karma, and consequently, the mature soul's prime responsibility is to ascertain the exact meaning of the Vedas, sacrificial injunctions, and to execute them. Duty is that which is indicated by the injunctions of the Vedas. The Vedanta Sutra, however, especially in the fourth chapter, which deals with life's ultimate goal, elaborately describe the soul's potential for achieving liberation from birth and death, while it subordinates ritual sacrifice to the role of helping one become qualified to receive spiritual knowledge. As stated there, Vedanta Sutra 4.1.16, Agni hotradi tu tat karya yaiva tat darsanat. The Agnihotra and other Vedic sacrifice are meant only for producing knowledge, as the statement of the Vedas show. And the very last words of the Vedanta Sutra 4.4.22 proclaim, Anavrittihi sabdat. The liberated soul never returns to this world as promised by the revealed scripture. Thus, the fallacious conclusions of the speculative philosophers prove that even great scholars and sages are often bewildered by the misuse of their own God-given intelligence, as the Katha Upanishad 1-5 says as follows. Caught in the grip of ignorance, self-proclaimed experts consider themselves learned authorities. They wonder about this world before, like the blind leading the blind. Of the six orthodox philosophies of Vedic tradition, Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisesika, Mimamsa, and Vedanta, only the Vedanta of Badrayana Vyas is free of error. And even that only as properly explained by the bona fide Vaishnava Acharya. Each of the six schools, nonetheless, makes some practical contributions to Vedic education. Atheistic Sankhya explains the evolutions of natural elements from subtle to gross. Patanjali's Yoga describes the eightfold method of meditation. Nyaya sets forth the techniques of logic. Vaisesika consider the basic metaphysical categories of reality. And Mimamsa establish the standard tools of scriptural interpretation. Apart from these six, there are also the more deviant philosophies of the Buddhists, Jains, and Charvakas, whose theories of voidism and materialism deny the spiritual integrity of the eternal soul. Ultimately, The only perfectly reliable source of knowledge is God Himself. The personality of Godhead is Avabodharasha, the infinite reservoir of unfailing vision. To those who depend on Him with absolute conviction, He grants the divine eyes of knowledge. Others, following their own speculative theories, must grope for the truth through the obscuring curtain of Maya. Srila Sridhar Swami prays for the bewildered soul wandering within the darkness of those exalted philosophies promoted by the harsh method of false logic, the path of true knowledge of you, O Lord of magnificent glory, remain invisible. O Lord of Madhu, husband of the goddess of fortune, when will I become liberated by joyfully chanting your names? Madhava, Vamana, Trinayana, Sri Shankara, Sripati, and Govinda. So the Vedas continues 1087:26. Very philosophical. Translation. The three modes of material nature comprise everything in this world, from the simplest phenomena to the complex human body. Although these phenomena appear real, they are only a false reflections of the spiritual reality, being a superimpositions of the mind upon you. Still, those who know the Supreme Self consider the entire material creation to be real in as much as it is non-different from the Self. Just as things made of gold are indeed not to be rejected, since their substance is actual gold. So this world is undoubtedly non-different from the Lord who created it and then entered within it. Purport. In one sense, the visible world is real, Sat, while in another it is not, Asat. The substance of this universe is solid fact, being the Lord's external energy. But the forms that Maya imposes on this substance are only temporary. And because material forms are temporary manifestations, those who consider them permanent are in illusion. Impersonalist scholars, however, misinterpret this division of Sat and Asat, denying common sense reality. They declare that not only material form, but also material substance is unreal, and they confuse their own spiritual essence with that of the absolute whole. A Mayavadi philosopher would take the words spoken by the personified Vedas in a preceding prayer, Trigunamayaha Puman iti Bheda, as negating any distinction between the Paramatma and the Jiva soul. He would claim that since the Jiva's material embodiment is an ephemeral display of the three modes of nature, when the Jiva's ignorance is destroyed by knowledge, he becomes the Paramatma, the Supreme Soul. Bondage, liberation, and the manifest world are all unreal creations of ignorance. In response to such ideas, the Vedas here clarify the factual relationship between Sat and Asat. In the Shruti literature, we find this statement, Asoto dhimano srijayata manaha prajapatim ashrat. Prajapati praja ashrat tadva idam manasi eva paramam pratistitam yad idam kimcha. The Supreme Mind was originally created from Asat. This mind created Prajapati, and Prajapati created all living beings. Thus, mind alone is the ultimate foundation of everything that exists in this world. Although impersonalists might misread this to mean that all manifest existence is based on the unreality of illusion, asat. The apparently contrary use of the word asat in this passage actually refer to the original cause, the supreme Godhead, because he is transcendental to material existence. The logic of the Vedanta Sutra 2117 corroborate this interpretation while denying the wrong interpretation of the impersonalist. If one objects that the material world and its sources cannot be of one substance because the world has been called unreal, we reply, no. Because the statement that Brahman is Asat makes sense in terms of his having qualities distinct from those of the creation. Thus, the Taittiriya Upanishad 271 declares, Asadva idam agra asit. In the beginning of this creation, only Asat was present. In the opinion of Srila Jiva Goswami, the word Adhimanaha in the passage quoted above refer to the ruler of the aggregate mind of the universe, Lord Anuruddha, who appear as a plenary expansion of Sri Narayan when the latter desired to create. Prajapati is Brahma, the father of all other created beings. This is described in the Mahanarayana Upanishad 1.4. Quote, then Lord Narayan meditate upon another desire of his, and as he pondered, a drop of perspiration fell from his forehead. All the material creations evolved from the fermentation of this drop. Therein, the fiery golden egg of the universe appeared, and within that globe, four-headed Brahma took his birth. When a particular object is manufactured, it appeared as a transformation of its ingredient cause, as in the case of jewelry made from gold. Person who wants gold will not reject gold earring or necklaces, since these items are still gold, despite their modification. True Gyanis see in this mundane example an analogy to the different yet non-different relationship of the Purusha and his emanations, both material and spiritual. Thus, this transcendental knowledge frees them from the bondage of illusion, for they can then see the Lord throughout his creation. Only one paragraph, so we can finish it. Sri Sridhar Swami prays, let us worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by virtue of whose substantial existence this created world seems to exist perpetually, although it is essentially insubstantial. As the Supersoul, he constitutes the representations of the real within this unreality. It's so intense when the philosophy comes. We need to keep on hearing and hearing, and then those thoughts will settle sometime. This is the process our Acharya has mentioned to us. So we should read everything. So with those thoughts, always remain happy, jubilant, and totally fearless. And whoever you come across, give them a kind word that their life can also become successful, happy, and totally fearless. With those thoughts, I would like to offer my humble obeisances at the desk of these wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis who take austerity to join every morning from Houston, from India, from New Jersey, Boston, Virginia, Boise, St. Louis, Alachua, Palace Station, Montreal, San Jose, Phoenix, Tempe, Brampton, Detroit, and Austin. Vanchakalpatarubhasya kripa sindhubhaivacha. पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो